hit. I would like to welcome you all to this evening's event. We are kicking off the WAMPA Annual Symposium. This year, we are talking about networks that flourish, and we are so excited to be in community with you all tonight and this weekend for those who will be joining us in person on Bainbridge Island tomorrow as we explore a path to better understanding and better communication between all those who support early learners in nature-based education. And I welcome you with my symposium committee members. I am Nicole Corbo. I'm the director of WAMPA, and my illustrious committee members are Rachel Franz, Sybil Mayer-Philo, and Maddie Cole. And this would not be happening without all of our combined efforts. We have a slight shift in this evening's event. Unfortunately, Joanne Duncan, who was scheduled to be our keynote, is not able to join us because of a family emergency, but two of her colleagues in creating nature-based learning opportunities and ensuring meaningful connection to the first peoples of the land where Ida Nason Aronica Elementary School resides have done us the great honor of stepping in. And shortly, Mary Lee Jones of the Yakima Tribe and Megan Rivard of Pacific Science Institute, who you may remember from last year's panel discussion, they will be introduced properly in just a few minutes. First, we would like to offer a land acknowledgement. And if you have been in a meeting with us before, then you know we acknowledge the land. We acknowledge the first peoples who are still here today, thriving in vibrant communities. And we also acknowledge that nature-based learning has been practiced since time immemorial by all Indigenous peoples around the entire planet. And we encourage you to connect with and be in meaningful relationship with the tribes whose land you now inhabit. Because unless you are an Indigenous person, you are on stolen land. We also invite you to take a moment right now to introduce yourself in the chat. And as you do that, please let us know where you are joining from and the Indigenous peoples who have cared for and been in relationship with the land you are currently residing on. Please share that with us. We like to know where everyone is coming from and joining us. Go ahead and shift to the next slide, please. Thank you. I would like to invite you all, as we are in community this evening, to listen for new information. Keep your mind and your heart open to experience and learn things. Hopefully you go away from here with something different, new, expanded than what you showed up with. And when you leave here this evening, you are invited to reflect on those new ideas and maybe some new ways of doing things. And we will have a Q&A portion to this evening. And when we get to that, we always ask that everyone be mindful of how we are in community together. We ask that you will please create space for people who maybe are who don't usually have a voice, whether it's because they are tend to be shy and stepped back, or whether it's because they are um, members of communities that have been historically marginalized, where their voices have been silenced or pushed to the side. And we invite you, if you are a person who likes to talk a lot, like myself, that you step back and create space for others. And if you are someone who has tended not to talk a lot, that you step into that space. We invite you to take up some space. And I would like to one last invitation before we move forward, and that is I invite you to take a deep breath. I invite you to feel your body grounded to the place, to the land where you are. And I invite you to imagine the massive network of mycelium connecting many millions of living beings across the planet. Consider their resilience, their creative ways to ensure thriving, flourishing networks, and then let that energy inspire you as we move into this evening's talk. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Sybil Mayer-Philo. And Maddie, if you want to stop sharing, go right ahead. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this event this evening. I'm thrilled to be able to introduce Megan Rivard, who is a personal friend of mine. We've been on this journey of nature-based education now for, I'm thinking, about 8 years. I don't know when we first met at an event a long time ago when I first started our class, and then Megan's son, Ranger, was a part of my first class in Ellensburg, and he basically was with me for a good 2.5 years, and now he's in 5th grade. How's that even possible? So, and there's a little sister too who's been part of our program. So I'm just grateful that Megan could be here this evening. Her current position is with the Pacific Education Institute, and she has moved into a new role, which she told me about today, and I'm going to get the title wrong, so I'm going to let her tell you what her role is. And then super grateful for Mary Lee to be here, and I'm going to let Megan introduce Mary Lee in just a moment. And then Mary Lee will be able to kick off our conversation. So I just want to say one thing really personally about Megan is her passion for getting us all connected. So wherever we are in the world of education, our goal to get children outside for meaningful experiences in the natural world, that is her heart. That is where she resides. And she is doing everything every day to make that possible for teachers in public schools, for those of us who are maybe working in programs that are outside of a traditional school program, and how are we getting each other connected, and how are we doing the work together to get those children outside. So she's the perfect person for the job that she's had, and it just makes perfect sense that we should be here together this evening to have this conversation. So we're super fortunate for her to talk a little bit about what she does, and then this project that you're going to get to learn about that is a real great example of what can happen when people work together. So I'm going to pass over to Megan so that she can introduce Mary Lee. Thank you so much for being here, both of you.
Thank you, Sybil. Thank you for that very touching introduction. I really appreciate that. Yeah, as Sybil said, my name is Megan Rivard. I work for Pacific Education Institute. We're a statewide nonprofit environmental education organization that works to support formal and non-formal educators in this kind of work, getting students outside and connected back to the land and their communities and their place. My position title is brand new as of July 1. I'm now the Associate Director for the Columbia Basin and Coast region. So the entire of Washington State minus Puget Sound. There's another Associate Director of that region. And I have been incredibly grateful to work with Joanne Duncan on numerous projects that I'll talk about in a little bit. But the one that is why she was brought here tonight, or why she was asked to come here tonight, is just a phenomenal thing to have happened in a public school. And I believe it may be only the fourth or something of these projects that have happened at an elementary school campus in the nation. So it's a big deal. And one of the best parts of this project, which I don't know that this has happened at any of the other elementary schools where this type of project has happened, is the connection that the school district and Joanne really has made with the local tribal nation, the Yakama Nation here. The family of Ida Nason Aronica, who the school is named after, have always been first and foremost on Joanne's mind when she's making decisions for that school. She wants to make sure that what they do at that school is honoring the legacy of Ida Nason. She wants to make sure always that this is something that the family members and the tribe feel is a good representation, is a healthy way to remember Ida Nason Aronica. And that is something that I've truly loved about the approach that Joanne has taken with this particular project. With that, Joanne has also reached out to some incredible folks within the Yakama Nation who do amazing work in lots of other realms. And one of those people is Marilee Jones, who really, when I was trying to think of how could I introduce Marilee Jones, and I told Sybil about this earlier, she's really a woman who does all the things and doesn't need me telling you an introduction, because her work speaks for itself. It is incredible, the language that she's bringing back, the culture that she's working, the dancing, the singing. It's just such a beautiful thing. And I had the honor of hearing Marilee speak to the students about bringing the energy from the sun, putting that into our bodies as the magic, and then putting that magic into the plants that we were planting, our ancestors that we were planting into the ground during this project. So I'm really excited for Marilee Jones to speak to you tonight, and I want to give the space here to her now.
Sheklawa Inknash Waniksha Smanati. Good evening. My name is Smanati. My English name is Marilee Jones. And thank you, Megan. That was very nice. Thank you for the group. Before we get started, I definitely want to say a huge thank you to Joanne Duncan. Thoughts go with her just because she is quite the Willy Wonka of the community and making things happen. But I have a video that they're going to play. Hopefully that comes out and you'll get a little background of what we do or what we've done there.
Perfect. Give me just a moment. Should be able to hear it in just a moment. It starts a little quiet.
Our focus is on things living and thriving. We're trying our best to bring back what was once here with traditional ways. It was discovered that by planting trees in close proximity, over time, they would also nurture each other. I hope this can inspire some of that transformation. for the inmates. And we're all just human beings as far as I'm concerned. You have this choice where you can allow the horrible things to crush you in your life, or you can use them to transform yourself into something better, that you can make a new future. With this process, working as a community, these resources nourish our life.
Thank you. So what I wanted to share about this whole circle was the work that was that we were being called upon was by Joanne. Initially, it was to work with some of the youth on sharing some of the culture of the dances. And so in doing this, we talked to some of the individuals that were setting up like a sunflower festival. And for us, the sunflower, I think somebody said they were from Spokane in there. It represented a plant. I don't even know what the English word for some of these are, but for us, it's called push kush. And so when we were preparing to get ready for some of this, we talked about what we wanted it to look like and how she wanted an outdoor classroom. And so during those talks, she planned out a small, like a local plant thing with maybe camas and a few other things that were native in the area. And I happen to know Ethan Bryson. He's the individual that was in the video. And so Ethan, I introduced them together and things just started to happen. We was very fortunate because the school district itself, that the Ida Nason Aronica School, the funding source for a lot of the planting, a lot of the things to take place was through Ethan's program. And it's the program is called Natural Urban Forests, but the umbrella is called Sugi. And Sugi has done these forests internationally all over the world. And as Megan shared, we have a forest in Dennehy Park, which is located in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We also planted a forest in Berkeley, California, and that was at, I think, 2 different schools, 3 different school districts, or 3 different schools within the same district. And then we also have the one that you've seen was with the inner child work. So a little bit of background as to what I do. I've worked in early childhood classrooms. And so one of the things that was most compelling was understanding some of the individuals that we worked with and the unresolved grief, some of the anxiety, the stress, some of the developmental concerns. As we all shared with the land-based piece a long time ago, some atrocious things had happened. And with that came generations of learning how to heal and how to let go. And so one thing we found in the healing forest is when the inmates had gone out to put their hands into the soil, when they had gone and planted, they invited their families. They made goals. These are things that weren't written up as to any kind of promissory thing or some kind of exit strategy that would happen within a corrections program. What ended up happening was one of the individuals that stood out had been in the corrections facility for 2 years, and he made his way over and talked with me and Ethan and a few others. And he said, when I get out, I'm going to have my daughter get involved with this kind of work. And so I thought, okay, a lot of people will say that, but not very many do it. So as time went by, about 3 or 4 months later, he was released. And first thing that happened is it was one spring morning, excuse me, and then he brought his daughter over. And when he brought her over, he said, okay, what do we do? What do we do? We need to do something. We need to get this all in order. Well, within our culture, the curriculum that we have is already developed and it's already in a circle. So whatever plants come in, that's the time that we talk about it. So we wouldn't be talking about rose hips in April. We would be talking about them now and probably even a month ago, because that's when they come about. So in the springtime, we were getting ready to talk about the roots. And so we stood at the bottom of our foothills, and my little corrections daughter, she was standing beside me, and I said, well, is there a song that you would like to sing? And she looked at me, and she was all but 8 years old. And she was kind of scared, but she had her father and her mother by her. And then she turned and she said, da-da-da, da-da-da, just beat it, just beat it. And she started singing Michael Jackson. And so I let her finish the whole thing. And I said, thank you for that song. And I said, now it's my turn to sing a song. So I sang my cultural song, and after we were finished, she so politely grabbed my hand and she said, I didn't know you meant an Indian song. And I said, no, it's okay, it's okay. Well, that song that I taught her by being outside with her and her family, she now digs probably at least 14 different plants. She speaks quite a bit of the language. She shared the song not just with her father, but with her grandmother. And so you talk about a healing sense. That's what this kind of curriculum sets up. The kind of environment that Megan will go probably more into detail is one, there's a collaborative effect, just like you have in the woods. Not every one of us in this group here are the same. We're all diverse. And that's just the way it is in nature. You don't see a whole row of just nothing but roses, which would be beautiful. You see all of them come out at different times with different strengths, with different medicines. And each and every one of them, the thing I really love is if we stop, slow down, and pay attention, they have a lesson. They have a lesson plan. They have something for us to teach. They are, and with our understanding, they are the first and foremost elders because they were here before us. My daughter was backtracking, thinking about the mycelium, and she was talking to me about mushrooms and saying that we're more closely related to mushrooms than we are, even other animals. And so there's so much to learn if we just stop and pay attention. So I guess what I really wanted to leave with is understanding when we go back to basics and we start to look at the world. I really want to send all of my love, my light, and my prayers to you, because when you work with the children, you are in a very, I guess the only other words, a sacred space. They are unfettered. They are pure. They are magic. They are the closest to the Creator. As time goes by, the things that the elders have taught me was when we have a child, we're given a gift, that gift of life, and that child's feet does not touch the ground for the first 2 years. And the reason it doesn't is because it's so heavenly. It's so blessed. It's so sacred. And it's as time goes by, when we get older, do we start to become more norm to the things that we either see as more easygoing, a little bit more beneficial, and we forget what those children teach us. So the field that you're in right now, I'm really happy for each and every one of you. You get to experience nature at its best by creating your own curriculum. And a true invitation to check your neighboring tribes, check with the Department of Natural Resources, check with Ethan Bryson about starting a forest, check about collaboration, just like the mushrooms, the mycelium, and the connections to make it happen. And then also to remember that I think this is the last thing I want to share, is this is what Megan was talking about. So if you can put your hands up right now and then rub them together, rub, 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 rub. While you rub them, I'm going to show you what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about my daughter, Joelle. I'm thinking about my son, Avery, my son, Jordan, my beautiful mother, Marlene, that's 75 years old. I'm thinking about my brother. And then I'm going to slow down and think of that most beautiful day when it was a crisp, clear spring day, and that sun warmed my shoulders, warmed my face, even if it was cold outside. That magic, that beautiful feeling. And now all of that is right here. It's energy, it's in your hands. Now you take that and you put that on your heart. You recharge yourself. And when children have a hard time working with certain areas, sometimes we have to check ourselves. We have to do inventory on ourselves. Are we trying to rush around and panic and get this done and that done? When in reality, like I said, the plants, they have their own time, they have their own space, they have their own way. And I think we need to remember that as adults, because there's no way that we can get all of those children to the finish line at the same time. And so with that, I just want to say thank you. I definitely wish I knew more about this. I've worked in early childhood. I'm a food gatherer. I work with children on social dances and helping with understanding the songs, the language, and the dance. But just know that I wish that Joanne was here, because she is really magic. And if there's any other areas that I could help out with, let me know. I do know people in your areas as well that could collaborate on certain ones, whether it's an awareness garden, whether it's a forest, or whether it's even just a tour that might be able to take place within the neighboring tribe. So thank you.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Thank you so much, Marilee. I don't have anything profound to say, but I just really appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit more about the logistics of this particular project that Marilee was part of here at Ida Nason Aronica Elementary, that Joanne has been really integral. Just very, very pumped to talk to you all about this. And I'll let Marilee answer that question that's in the chat about having your contact information, Marilee. So what I wanted to talk to y'all about is branches. Now, you're going to have to just forgive me because I had to throw this together very quickly, which actually isn't hard because there's so much content here to talk to you about. The hard part was narrowing it down into just a few things. So I started working with Joanne Duncan, I think it was 2014. And in 2014, she was put in charge of the summer literacy program. So this is this basically summer school for students who are lowest performing, 2 grade levels or more behind in reading and or math. And this is for students entering 1st through 5th grade. So any students within the elementary setting who were behind 2 or more grade levels had to go to this summer literacy program, the summer school, essentially. Joanne being put in charge of it meant that it did not look like school. It looked like this. And her question to me while we were out there in this beautiful nature study area outside Mount Stewart Elementary, which is the neighboring school to Ida Nason, what if school could always look like this? Like this? Like this? What if school could always look like that? Students are outdoors, they're engaged, they're asking questions, they're looking closely, they're touching, they're feeling, they're smelling, they're doing all of the things outdoors, including reading, writing, and math. And their reading, writing, and math are contextualized. It's part of the outdoor experience. What if it could always look like this? That was sort of the seed that started things here in the Ellensburg School District, because a few years later, the school district passed a levy to build a brand new elementary school. And Joanne said, what if that school could look like that summer camp? What if it could look like that every day? What if we could take kids outside every day? Well, with this idea, students outdoors, reading, writing, doing math and science and social studies, the idea began to grow. But a tree is not a forest, and an idea alone, one person alone, does not make the thing happen. There's a story in many tribal nations here in the Pacific Northwest called Grandmother Cedar Tree. I did not get permission to tell the story tonight, so I'm not going to tell the story out of respect, but I will say that in this story, there is a grandmother cedar tree who is caring for a tree seedling. And in that story, grandmother cedar tree makes sure that the seedling is protected from sun and wind and pests, and has songbirds singing to the little cedar tree. The grandmother cedar tree is helping to grow that little seedling. Western science took a while to catch up to this ancient idea that's been around for millennia. And so now when we cut timber in areas, we actually leave older trees in the stand, so that when we plant seedlings, when we reforest, the seedlings have these older trees in the stand to support them. How are they supporting them? Well, in forest communities, they're supporting them through the roots. And this is from a book called We Are Branches. It's a wonderful children's book. I love it. It's beautiful illustrations. Talks about how we're all branches. We have branches in ourselves. All of these living things have branches. So they're keeping each other safe. They're bringing up water from the deep, deep soil up into the surface. They're bringing nutrients to that younger tree through those roots. They're shading the younger tree with their branches. This protection and support comes from this network of branches. And Western science even took a little longer to catch up to finally realize that there were these mycelial networks, these branches, even smaller branches, that were supporting the old trees, that were supporting the young trees, and that these branches of mycelial networks in the root systems of these older trees were the secret to the forest's success, and the secret to the support and the growth of these seedlings. And without it, forests would die. So when we used to come into places and cut down all the trees, this is back in colonial times, we would actually come in and cut down the largest trees for our timber, for our building, for our construction. We would cut down the largest trees because you could get the most amount of lumber from that tree. Now we leave those trees. We know that those large trees are what are keeping that forest alive and healthy and keeping those seedlings alive and healthy. This is something that has been known since time immemorial by the people who originally inhabited this place. They have told this story for millennia to their children, to their children's children. They know that those trees grow together. So what does this have to do with the idea and the seedling? Well, living systems, this is the first shift in thinking around education. If living systems are integrated wholes whose properties cannot be reduced to those of their smaller parts, their systemic properties are properties of the whole that none of the singular parts has. This is how we should look at education. Education of the child should be a living system, an integrated whole with properties that you cannot reduce to one small singular part. It's not just the building. It's not just the location. It's not just the teachers you put in there. It's not just the community that it resides in. It's not just the students you have. It's not just the trees on the ground. It's not just the plants. It's the entire system that builds your education program for your students. And so Joanne's idea, the start, the seed, was nourished and brought to life. And when you do that, you create things like this. This is the pocket forest at Ida Nason Aronica Elementary School on its first day. It's planting day. And these are the students. They're all around the entire circle. These are the students that planted the little seedlings in this space. When you work together as an integrated system, you can do huge things. This system included the folks at Sugi. It included the Natural Urban Forest with Ethan Bryson, the Ellensburg School District. Integris Architecture was part of this. Washington Outdoor School supporting the teachers and learning how to take students outside. The Rotary Club for donating seeds and plants, and donated the money to buy all of those plants. The Confederated Tribes of the Yakama Nation for their support of this project, for helping to identify the native species that should be planted here. All of these organizations working together to support this network, this system, to support this education to happen. So it's not just the individual, it's all of this whole system working together to make it happen. In one day, the students planted 1,400 trees and shrubs in just a little plot of land, only 4,000 square feet. That's 42 different species of plants, 42 packed into that little small area. We packed them in there because when they grow close together like that, they support each other. And they actually, in this system, it's a 4-layer system. In this densely populated system, they see these plants and trees growing 10 times faster than trees that aren't planted in this system. The 4 layers, they have like an herb and shrub layer. They have a subtree layer. They have the tree layer and then the canopy layer. This is called the Miyawaki method of afforestation, putting trees back into the land, rewilding this system. That support system under the soil that you can't see, the mycelial networks, the soil health, the soil structure, that's what supports this and makes this happen. Ethan Bryson with Natural Urban Forest is the one who helped design this particular urban forest, or this pocket forest. And so we're very grateful to them to help put this to life and make this happen. And as you can see, we're at the very beginnings here. This is just the first day of getting these plants into the ground. But within 2 or 3 years, this is a completely self-sustaining system. No longer needs watered, doesn't need tending. And with all of the native plants that have been planted here, our indigenous peoples who live here still today will be able to come here and gather traditional foods that they would have been able to gather pre-colonial. So we're bringing back health and life and culture and community to this soil that was just barren. And it's just a very moving thing to think that this school could be part of something so big and grand. I have a couple of pictures here. This is Ethan Bryson and one of the kiddos out there planting. You can see every single picture is happy kids, excited kids. They loved being part of this. They also were talked to and explained about the importance of this work and what it means to put in a pocket forest. Mary Lee got to talk to them. She did the energy from the sun, the energy into our hearts, and then we put that energy right into the plants themselves as we put them into the ground, thinking about our loved ones and taking that emotion, that feeling, and putting that into the ground, into these plants. The students became very connected to their plants. Here's one student wrote, "We planted a pocket forest today. I think my tree will have a happy life. I feel happy for planting a tree. I hope my tree and strawberry plant have a good life." And I think that's just like, oh, it gets me right in the feels. Good job. Good job, little friend. Trying to advance forward here. And it's not letting me. Here is a view a little bit of this pocket forest. It is a circle with north, south, east, west quadrants with pathways through the center. And the circle is on kind of a nice little terrain area. Eventually, in a couple of years, this will be so lush and green and beautiful, and students will be able to run through the center to get lost in the woods almost, you know, with this feeling of being just here in this space, being able to sit quietly, smell, look, listen at the biodiversity that now comes into this space and really be connected with it. The circle was really meaningful to Joanne. She had a book called The Circles All Around Us. And in that book, she cites this part the most. She loves this one. In the circles all around us, everywhere that we all go, there's a difference we can make and a love we all can show. And the circles also have great meaning in our local tribal nation culture. Circles are also, if you're doing environmental education, that's where everyone gets a seat, a front row seat. There's no double parking, everyone gets to be part of the conversation. And that's another, just a really great way that these things are bringing us all together. Here's some more students planting. Our older students worked with some of our youngest students, our transitional kindergartners, had a 4th grade buddy, and they got to plant together, talk about what they were planting. We talked with the students about what species they were planting. We used almost a person language. This is who you will see in the ground. This is strawberry. This is birch. This is larch. And planting those into the ground with that language was just really connecting students to this space. And the plain fact is that the planet does not need more successful people, but it does desperately need more peacemakers, healers, restorers, storytellers, and lovers of every kind. It needs people who will live well in their places. And that's what we're trying to do in this space with the incredible network of everyone around us to make that happen. The other book that Joanne chose for this school year is called Maybe. This was a book she then gifted to all of the volunteers that came to help support the students in the planting. I chose this page of the book. What if you are only scratching the surface of what you can do and who you can be? I love the illustrations in here and really showing the students that everything that they're trying here at Ida Nason Elementary, they're just finding out who they are and who they can be. And this pushed some of our kiddos a little outside of their comfort zone. Some of them had never put their hands in soil. And to get them out there and doing that was just really a beautiful piece and way to get them connected. And I just wanted to thank you all so much for listening and being here and being part of this incredible work, educating our young people. Like Marilee says, this is such an incredible calling to be part of these young people's lives. And I hope that while you're out there with them, you're learning all of the secrets of the universe from them and taking that back.
All right. Thank you so much to Megan and to Marilee. That was absolutely wonderful. So my name is Maddie Cole, and I'm the head of Fiddleheads Forest School in Seattle, and I am leading our question and answer portion of the evening. So I want to give us a moment to just reflect and soak in. There's no pressure to jump in with the millions of questions we may have. But when you have a moment and have a question, please feel free to use the raise hand feature of the Zoom or to type it into the chat. Rachel is letting anyone who needs the information know that the raise hand feature can be found under the reactions part of the Zoom features. All right, I see Mobby has our first question. Mobby, you can come off of mute. Go ahead. Oh, and feel free to introduce yourself if you'd like. And if the question is directed specifically at one speaker, let them know. Otherwise, we'll just assume that either can jump in with their answer.
First of all, thank you so much, everyone. I'm so grateful for being here, and I feel very blessed, actually. And Marilee, your speech really filled my heart, filled my soul, filled my mind and my body. It made me so grounded. The special offering that you are teaching us with your hands are so powerful. It's really powerful. And it's really true. We give and we put ourselves to the children, but we receive so much.
Oh, yeah.
It's a two-way enrichment or nourishing path. So I'm originally from Peru. So it's my ancestry. I remember the first time I arrived to Seattle, and I just walked down the street, and there was a person that that definitely was he looked like was a Native American. He approached me and walked very seriously and said, "So, which tribe do you belong to?" And I said, "Well, Incas." He said, "Oh, welcome." And it was so nice because we can, I can see a lot of resemblance in our people down there in South America. So I live in Bainbridge Island now, and I have this outdoor program. It's a Spanish immersion program. This was born from the need to teach my own daughter during COVID, and I've been a teacher for many years, but not in early childhood. So it happens that we are blessed in the place that I live, and we have my house is surrounded by acres of forest. Part of it is private property, but we also, we need to preserve it. So we have a certain space and percentage, and we like to keep it like that. So my program is in the garden that we have, but it's next to the forest, and we go into the forest to have daily our walks. And I've always have this question in my mind. Would it be better for the forest, healthier for the forest to create paths cones that the kids are allowed to walk on, or is it healthier to just try to read the map that the forest changes over seasons? Like, I don't know, I'm just doing this by what I feel it's right, but I might be wrong. And this is my question to you. So I see the deer path and I just try to follow the deer path. I like to read, to try to teach the kids not step on the heads of the ferns, you know, like, okay, sometimes we step on the leaves. Well, I guess they can recover, but not the heads. Like, try to read the forest, because I feel, and I see this project, that is so nice to see the kids get lost in the woods, and this awe and this mutual nourishment between children and the forest and nature, that for me things maybe having or creating paths, it's not the healthiest. So this is a question, whether having paths and marked, or just try to read the forest. And my groups are not big. Basically, I have maximum of seven to 8 children. Thank you.
Well, I think thank you for all those kind words as well. And I think I just want to share something from my daughter. When we went root digging, she must have been about 6 or 7 years old. And when we go root digging, we're out in this big old foothills area. And so my daughter went her own direction, and we try to keep an eye on each other because we're out in wildlife. But I was wondering where she was going, so I kept kind of going behind her and staying within distance of her. And I noticed that she was going down a deer path. And when we went down the deer path, the roots, because of the water, the whether it be the, what is it, snow melt or the rain, it followed along that deer path. And the beautiful thing about it is, whenever we go along the deer path, now we know that's where we get the biggest roots. It's where we get the biggest berries. And that shuffling around, it's good for the environment. But the thing that I love the most, when we take the children out and we introduce them, when I take them out for the piache, what I call piache, the mainstream word is bitterroot. When we go out to those sites and we introduce the children, this is what she looks like. This is where she grows. Look around you. What kind of birds do you see? What kind of plants are around here? Where's the sun sitting? Look at everything around you and get to know your sister, because this is where she grows. Look at the trees. What else is around her? What does it feel like today? And whether you realize it or not, they start to become aware of what she looks like. They identify her, they dug her. And the reason we do this is because in the very beginning, I talked about that connection. Now, this isn't just a connection like a hobby or an interest. This is our way of life. And so for us, when the Creator first made Earth, the first one to jump up to say, I will help take care of man and woman, it was water. It was then coming from the water was the nusach, the waikanish, the salmon. It came out and the deer, all of these followed. But the thing that they all said was, my life is now over. My life is done. And I give it to you. I give it to you for nourishment. I give it to you for clothing from the deer. I give it to you to take care of your body with all those vitamins. And when you start to work with the plants and the outdoors in that mannerism and understand and respect their spaces, they're going to come back and talk to you in ways that you're just talking about by going down the deer trail. But the beautiful thing is that the children are going to say, hey, look, there's the bitterroot, there's the piache, and they're not going to want to step on her. They're going to see all of these different plants that you identify. And when you identify them, look at Rosehip. Rosehip is here and she's so beautiful. Look at what color is she? She is so vibrant. And did you know that when you feel weak or scared, that she carries so much vitamin C that you can make a tea out of her and she'll make you feel better. When you take a bath with her, she'll take all of those scared feelings away, because that is what she does. She's medicinal. And so once you get that introduction, we don't really necessarily have to say this or that. You can go on the deer trail, but the thing that's the beautiful part is the children start to have more respect for every separate plant. So I'm sure there's a little bit more scientific side of it. Megan, do you have something else?
So I think the big difference here is the way that we have relationship with the land in Western culture, which is very extractive. And the relationship that the peoples who came before us had with the land was reciprocal. It was part of a reciprocal relationship. So when we go to a place, we tend to go en masse. We have tons of people visit a particular trail and tromp up that trail because it's a favorite hiking spot. And we take our kids there and our kids' there, and we go there with all of our loud music and our heavy boots and tromp up this trail up to a vista to get to a place, right? And see that thing and then come back down. And while that's a wonderful way to experience nature, it's a very different way than what Mary Lee is talking about, which is this relationship that she is in with these plants, which is a much different way of moving across the land. So just when you're moving across the land, when you're thinking about moving across the land with a large amount of kids or with a large amount of people, or if you're in a very public space that is used often by lots of people, like if you have your outdoor school at a park or somewhere where many people go, stick to the trails in those instances, because that has already been super disturbed, and we want to just keep the rest of the land very healthy and teach our children that we want to respect this and move in the space, safe and kindly. A lot of people moving in a space will create trails, will create erosion, will create problems. So until we have that respect for the plants and knowing how to move across that land with really with intention, it's really good to teach our children to stay to trails until they have learned that.
It's also a learning curve too. It's a total window of opportunity. And when we work with the children in our longhouse and take them out, they'll come out and say, "Oh my gosh, what are those beer cans doing out here?" And they bring out their own bags, and nobody even has to tell them to clean it up. It's just like, who would do this? Who would bring this out here? They are so shocked. It's so beautiful. And so you'll see that the children take their own responsibility out of empathy. And so that's a good skill set to build on.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you so much for your question, and Megan and Mary Lee for your answers. I'm going to jump between the chat and the folks who raised their hands. So one of the questions that we had in the chat was hoping that you all could tell us a little bit more about how the different groups in the slide that was so handily shared down there, how did all those people and groups come together for the Pocket Forest Project? I'd be specifically curious on whether or not, you sort of reached out to all of them in the same way, whether you sort of changed what you were saying depending on the different focus or foci of each one. So yeah, as much as you can speak to that.
So I want to say that earlier this year, we were invited into a sunflower festival. Sunflower feast is what they would call it in the Spokane area. And during that time, I was looking at the pictures and I said, well, that's what we honor. That's one of our foods. That's called push kush. And so I was talking to Joanne about Ethan. And Ethan, he's like a little Superman. He has several different videos out too on what he's done in Boston and California. We've done a couple in Seattle. I think we've done 4 in the Yakima area. But what he does is he'll pull people together and say, okay, this is what needs to happen. We're going to need X amount of volunteers. We're going to need X amount of this much time and this much material. And then the other part of it that he will do is, like I said before, he will help look for funding. The funding that came for this specific project was hosted by Sugi. And Sugi, I know her name is I think it's Elise. I can't remember how to say her last name. But she's come to the Yakima Valley. And I want to say she's from Switzerland, but I can't remember. If you look on, I'm probably going to just crash this all together, but it's on one of the social media sites, and she has a page that's called Sugi. And so she does this internationally all over. And that's what Ethan got a hold of to do something different. Because the thing with Ethan is there's many pocket forests out there. There's many reforestation, there's rewilding, all the terminologies there. But Ethan is the only one that works closely with the tribal communities next to it to try to honor the plants that were there, how they were used, whether it be as food, as medicinals, as tools. And so from that point, he was kind of the conductor with Joanne. And they got a few of the volunteers together from the school, and they were really helpful. But Megan, what about you? What else did you see?
Yeah, so for this particular project, again, this is Joanne being the seed, the idea, the seedling of really wanting this school, Ida Nason Aronica, to A, honor Ida Nason Aronica, and B, be a place where students can reconnect with the natural environment, and where education can happen outdoors. So in that mission, she looks for other examples. She's really good at reaching out to what she calls rebel educators or rebel administrators, people who aren't doing it the same as it has always been done, looking at what other places are doing. And I'm not sure that she would have found Sugi in Pocket Forest if it weren't for Mary Lee Jones. So really grateful to Mary Lee for that. She had in her mind gardens, garden spaces for some of the native plants that Ida would have grown. And I think they're still working on that and doing that and planting that, which is great. They're working on that with Conservation District. She wrote some grants through the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction to get funding for some of this planting. So that's how OSPI came in. Pacific Education Institute, we are part of the education of the teachers, so helping the teachers learn how to take students out, what kind of curriculum they can use, etc. Washington Outdoor School, Joanne came all the way out to Roslyn to see what it looked like to take students across wild spaces, and little students are phenomenal at showing how students can move across wild spaces because their little legs, trip over all kinds of things, and yet they can still do it safely, and they do it wonderfully and beautifully. I mean, each partnership comes with different pieces and comes through different methods and modalities, but in this case, it really was the leadership, the administration, Joanne being the one to go out and do the research and find how can we make something like this happen here.
And then I do want to add on, I really got a different perspective coming home from the whole event too, my daughter had pulled me aside and talked to me about some of the things that were said. The driving force was those kiddos. They were amazing. One of the kiddos came over and he talked about how he had a friend at the previous school and he wanted to name that tree after his friend. And he planted another tree and said that was him, so he could always be by his friend. Another little girl, she came over and she said that she, I'm trying to think of how she worded that. She talked about her dog, and her dog had just went missing like 2 weeks or a week, that same week. What was that? 4 days before we planted. And they haven't seen her, but that dog was there before she was even born. So they got the dog and her, they were both in the same age range. And she, of course, the puppy. But what ended up happening is she lost the dog and she named the tree after the dog. And she named the tree next to her after her, so she could always be by that dog if the dog never came back. And she said she never told anybody at the school because it would hurt to talk about it. The other thing, she went and they were only supposed to plant like maybe 2 or 3. That little girl went back and forth so many times. And she went and got another tree and said this one was her grandmother. She lost her grandmother earlier this year. And she said, I never met my grandpa, but I know she loved him. So I'm going to plant another tree right by that one for my grandma and grandpa to always be together. And there was, several others that said a significance. My middle name is Rose, so I want to plant a rose tree. There was so many that had just amazing little stories about, this one is for my dad. My dad doesn't live with me. He lives in someplace else. And my mom and dad don't live together anymore. But this one is my dad and this one is me and this is my mom. I mean, it was so therapeutic. So I think that's important to understand, that whole outdoor lesson of just that planting. It really had us teared up. My daughter really choked up about the grandparent one because she could totally relate to understanding how to pull those feelings out. And that's what it does for us, it's very healing.
Oh, thank you. That is so lovely. I'm actually curious, as a little bit of a follow-up just in the way that the children were connecting the trees with their own homes. Is there a great deal, as we speak about partners, of course, one of the biggest advocates is hopefully the families. Is there a lot of family involvement and invitation to plant and to see the space after hours and things like that? Or is it a little bit more restricted to the children during school time?
When we've planted over at, oh gosh, what is that? Danny Park. That one was beautiful. It was I want to say it was really early spring, but people came in and brought their family. Everybody planted a tree, even in a little circle area. But there was like, being the host of that forest, you can kind of decide how you want to do this and what you want the outcome to be. Because I think even us leaving each forest, there's always things that happen that we just didn't expect. And so having some of those moments, it really kind of put us into alignment to understand what we're doing. Sure, it's bringing, of course, more trees and improving the air. The place that it was originally planted with corrections, that place it was horrible. The soil was powder and you couldn't even grow weeds in there. But once we got out there with the correction inmates, that one was intergenerational. They brought in their families, their parents, their children, and planted that one. And that's in the same shape as Ida Nesa Aronica School. So really, it's just about anything. We've involved groups. We've done challenges before to ask people to come out. And you think it would be work. You think it would be like, oh my gosh. And believe me, it is. Once you're done, you're sore. But in the process of it, it's not like that at all. You're feeling pretty good because it's, especially looking at the work that's been done.
Right now, the forest does have a fence around it for protection from tramples because it is in their recess area. And you get a little excited as a kid running, and we just want to help remind them not to trample all of the beautiful plants that we've put into that space. But yeah, eventually, as all school grounds are public spaces after school hours, it will be a public space. And what an incredible gift to the community that this space will be.
Thank you. Pause and see if we have any other questions. Otherwise, I know as a group we had a few. Feel free to, again, type something into the chat or use the reactions raise hand feature. Yes, Rachel raised a hand. Go ahead, Rachel.
We did. Megan and Mary Lee, thank you so much for all of this incredible wisdom and sharing all sorts of different stories. Mary Lee, my question is for you. You mentioned that sort of each of the plants that can be gathered are significant to your culture as an Indigenous person in the Yakama Nation. I'm wondering if you have a plant that is like your favorite offers your favorite lesson or lesson plan that you'd be interested in sharing with us.
I'll share with one that's prized around the area. So this is a story that was taught by my grandmother, and I'm sure by her grandmother, but it's a story about the springtime and getting ready. And all the flowers were getting ready. The sun was coming up, the crater was coming, and they were all amongst each other. Hurry up, bumping into each other, taking care of their beautiful bonnets, all the different colors of spring. And they seen Yellow Bell laying on the side. And they said, Yellow Bell, wake up, it's almost time. And she said, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to get up. I just want to lay in bed. And all the others were still running around, bumping into each other, getting ready. And one of them tried again, and they said, you know what? She won't get up. They said, well, it's going to have to be. Go get yourself ready. And they kept trying to nudge her. Well, pretty soon the sun came up. All the flowers took their spots. And when the sun came up, they all looked at the beautiful grand sun coming up. And then the creator said, wait, there's somebody missing. And somebody went over and pulled on Yellow Bell. And they said, Yellow Bell, get up here. And she came up and they said, what happened? And they said, well, we're all ready. And Yellow Bell, look at you. And she was just embarrassed because she wasn't ready. And so every time you see Yellow Bell, she has her head down. And my daughter, I'll have to ask her, she's here. Her scientific name is
Frutillaria. I don't know that.
Frutillaria. But if you look up Yellow Bell, under our culture, it's called Sickney, but she's a yellow flower, and she sits with her head down in shame because she didn't get ready. And so the grandmas will always tell you, don't be a Yellow Bell. And the base of the Yellow Bell, there's like this waxy root. Oh my gosh. What was Fritillaria pudica? But the base of the root is white and waxy and it looks like a disc. And that is surprisingly odd. You talk about, I don't know, just experiences. The first time I tried it, I couldn't figure out, is this a meat or is this a vegetable? What is it? But it is a really waxy kind of root. And the stem of it is probably like the best lettuce you've ever had. It tastes so juicy and sweet. But the bell is like candy. And so the whole thing is edible. And the thing about it is, depending on where you go, this is the part where I say, you know, caution, because this is, I can say this is my plant. This is my sister. This is who I know. And it's something that I've been introduced to. And I also know how to take care of her. I also know that, you know, we don't strip all of the yellow bells when we see them. We leave some behind. And so there's teachings that go with that. But as far as like my favorite, I would have to say one of my favorites is the Mariposa lily. And the reason why is because she teaches me how to, it's between that and Spring Beauty. We call Spring Beauty honey push. It's a potato. And the Mariposa is like another kind of a root system. But the reason those two are so important to me, and when I tell you they talk to me, it's absolutely mystical. One spring day, we was coming out, going for a drive, and I kept asking, gosh, what does this look like? I see it, everybody posting it in Facebook. I see my friends have always talked about honey push, and I can't find her. And so I'm thinking that, but that spring day, I'm walking around in this meadow and we're looking for some of these other plants. Well, right below my feet, I thought, what is that? That is a beautiful flower. And it's literally like she's tapping on my foot. And she's like, look at me, I'm honey push, I'm honey push. And so I grabbed my root digger, my cup in, I dug underneath, and sure enough, there she was. You talk about like absolutely rejoicing. My sister, I finally found you. And it's like, no, I found you. You were just walking around lost in the woods, and here I am. And so finding all of the other ones, it was beautiful. And so for the Mariposa lily, that one's called Newness. And I kept doing the same thing. I got to find this. I got to find this. I don't ever see it. What's it look like? There is only 10 foods in my culture that are celebrated now. But because of this kind of work, my daughter and I, we celebrate 28 that we've gathered. And so that's a huge difference. But the one of those at the tail end was the Newness. And the same thing happened. And I seen one, and I committed a sin, because when I seen it, I said, oh my gosh, that totally looks like Newness. That looks like Mariposa lily. And I said, should I get it? There's only one. There's only one in that field. What if this is the only one? And so I start thinking, well, I can bring it to my friend Joyce, because she's got a green thumb and she'll know how to revive it and get it back into life to where we have more than one. But I thought, you know what, Creator, forgive me. I'm taking it because I want that flower so I can find it, and I'll come back and plant some more, I promise. So I went over there and I dug it up. And the reason it was so significant is because the gal that was telling me about this, she said, oh no, I'll take you in the spring. I'll take you. Be ready now. I'm going to take you. I'll take you. And when COVID hit, COVID got her. And so because this is all oral, we don't ever, we never really utilize the internet. We never really utilize books. But when she talked to me about Mariposa lily, Newness, she only told me the Indian word, and I had to really research. So that one is one of my favorites, because when I seen her, it's really like she was the only one in the field. But then the following week I went out and there was thousands, and I thought, how did I miss this before? So I don't know. Those are some of mine. I could take you all gathering with me and we'd have the best time because there's nobody rushing you. There's nobody pushing you. You get all the fresh air. The foods will feed you right out there. It's beautiful. And those are the true teachers. That's the true classroom. Thank you. I could talk about this all night.
Thank you so much. Oh, what a profound answer. Thank you. Well, we have about 4 more minutes or so before we wanted to have our closing remarks. I want to really make sure there's intentional space for those who are guests and joining tonight to ask a question if they have one before I open it up to our hosts.
The only thing I want to say is I'm just really happy for everybody. You could be anywhere you wanted to be right now. It's a Friday night and you are all here, and I appreciate this. You're my people, and it just makes me happy to hear everybody so interested in and wanting to know more about the land and using it as what it is, a classroom. So I'm honored. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. We're so glad you could be here. Let's see. I'm seeing messages of gratitude. If we don't have any of our guests with an initial question, those who are just joining as listeners, I wanted to see if any of our organizers had a burning question that could be a couple-minute answer. I know many of our questions could be an hour.
I actually have one. I don't, hopefully it'll be short. I'm just curious about how the ongoing relationship with the tribes will be with that forest, like staying connected, making sure that those medicines are going to the tribes and, the school children and the school is tending and caring for, but that it's yeah, I don't know if I'm saying what I'm trying to say correctly, but I'm just wondering how that relationship is going to be ongoing.
The school, the namesake, there's actually Ida Nason's, I believe it's her son, that is in the community. And so the thing that we're always taught is that we are not divided as the government made us, to where we're Umatilla and Yakima. We come from different regions, but the things that will help us understand this whole lifestyle is wherever that salmon is from, that's where I'm from. Wherever that deer is from, that's where I'm from. Wherever the bitterroot's from, that's where I'm from. Any of the huckleberries, that's where I'm from. And then you start to understand that we are all interconnected. And it was, based upon everybody's need back in the day, and even today, to have that. So the livelihood, I think this forest not only will thrive within the tribal understanding of the foods and the plants and the tools, but it will also open doors to help you understand, where do I come from? What was my food from time immemorial? What tools did I have? What is my connection? And when it does that, then we are all slowing down to take care of ourselves. And when we talk about that word tribe, the clan, the family, we start to understand that's preserved because we're stopping to honor it. So.
And I think that the hope is that the school will continue to tend for the space, but because of the way that it is planted, it does get to a point of self-sufficiency where it needs very little water. It needs very little, except from us. It needs weeding. We need to make sure that we keep that space free of invasive species, and then the tending to the medicines, that is something that our local Kittitas people and other Yakima confederated tribes would be welcome to come into that space at the appropriate times to gather as they need. And that is, in my mind, the healthiest relationship that the land can have with the people. So.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel, who will finish off our evening.
Thanks, Maddie. And let me share my screen quickly here. This was just beyond beautiful. Mary Lee and Megan, thank you so much for not only being here and being present and sharing your wealth of knowledge tonight, but also doing it completely last minute. We're so grateful, and we're also grateful to Joanne Duncan, who couldn't be here tonight, and this incredible project as a true metaphor for an example of ways that we can connect across different communities, across different roles, across different understandings, to create something that honors nature and honors children. And that's what it's all about, right? I also want to just give a quick shout out to my fellow symposium committee members, Nicole Corbo, Sybil Mayor-Philo, and Maddie Cole, who have been tirelessly working to put our event together, and through many ups and downs this year, and it has been just incredible working with you all. And also a huge thank you to all of you who are joining us. Our membership and our community around nature-based early learning is what we do this for. And just huge gratitude to you all, especially on a Friday night. Yeah, we all know how hard Fridays are to stay awake, so here we are. And I wanted to just mention that tomorrow we hope to see many of you at our in-person component of our 2023 symposium. We'll be meeting on Bainbridge Island, and all of you should have received an email with logistics and details earlier today. Please reach out if you didn't, and we'll make sure we get you that information. And then if you're not already a member with us, we highly recommend becoming one. It's free. We have a great Facebook community group that you are welcome to join and get support and, you know, ask those questions that come up and vent a little and share your resources and ideas. We'd love to have you. And with that, I would love to close with just sort of a different rendition of one of the books that Joanne Duncan picked out as inspiration for this project. That book is called Circles All Around by Brad Montague. And Brad made sort of like a different rendition of the story on YouTube, and I just want to share it briefly as a way for us to close today. So I'm going to go ahead and play that.
Circles by Brad Montague. We begin by drawing the circle on the ground. Land eats you. A safe little circle for just one person. Nobody on the circle but you. As time passes, our eyes open. We see others we really care for. So that's when we ask ourselves, so what's this circle really there for? And the circles all around us, everywhere that we all go, there's a difference we can make, and a love we can all show. The circle doesn't have one person. The circle for just you, yourself. But that would be like the library with just one book on the shelf. So now draw a bigger circle for friends and family can say. Now you see what all can happen in a circle full of tales. But standing in the circle with you and your loved ones now all in it, what about all the other people? All the ones that you couldn't fit? So you stretch and get the pencil out and draw the circle a bit more wide and let a few more people know they're welcome now inside. And the circles all around us, everywhere we all go, there's a difference we can make. And love we can also. It doesn't mean the circle's easy. It's a bit harder the more you see it. But wonderful things can happen when love is known and felt everywhere. But there's still so many persons outside the circle. They're different all they do. The feeling is little and tough, but all for a better settle what have to do. So let's trade better settles all around us for the rest of our days. Let our caring ripple out in a million little ways. In the circles all around us, everywhere that we all go, there's a difference we can make and a love we can all show. As our circles all get wider and they shift on every side. Never forget where the love came from. You first found there inside.
With that, we leave you. Thank you so much. We'll be around for a few more moments if you have questions. And again, thank you to Mary Lee. Thank you to Megan. And thank you to you all for being here this evening. Have a great night.
Yes, indeed. I saw a question about tomorrow in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and then we can talk about tomorrow if we need to.